Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in our country over the last week or so. And as is customary, I want to take this opportunity to welcome our viewers, followers, and friends who are joining us on Facebook by the thousands right across the length and breadth of Guyana, North America, Europe, and further afield. I also want to take this opportunity to welcome our listeners who are joining us on Freedom Radio. Welcome once again, and I want to begin our tonight's discussion by informing you that this afternoon the Chief Justice made her decision in writing available in the matter filed by Christopher Ram. So the judgment of the learned Chief Justice in the matter filed by Christopher Ram, in which he delivered an oral decision last Wednesday, the written judgment is now available, and that should put an end to the wait that the nation has been asked to endure by GCOM. We were told by GCOM that the chairperson is awaiting a copy of the written judgment, and that copy of the written judgment would have been delivered this afternoon to the chairman of GCOM. So I think that there is a meeting tomorrow, and hopefully that judgment would be studied, it would be discussed, and actions would be taken based upon what is contained in the judgment, based upon what is contained in the consequential orders of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and based upon what is contained in the relevant sections of the Constitution and the relevant sections of our law. Were those provisions of the law and the Constitution to be applied, then the house-to-house process currently ongoing should be scrapped, and the existing list of electors be refreshed by a claims and objections period, and GCOM should proceed to inform the government that they are now in a position to hold credible elections. Anything to the contrary would be in violation of the Constitution, would be in defiance of the Chief Justice ruling, and would be in violation of the consequential orders promulgated by the Caribbean Court of Justice. Because all these different sources say that elections are long constitutionally overdue, having regard to the fact that a successful no confidence motion was passed in the National Assembly of Guyana on the 21st of December 2019. And we all know what the Constitution say must happen when such a no confidence motion is passed. So we are hoping that with the delivery of the written judgment today of the Honorable Chief Justice, that GCOM would now operate with dispatch and speed and would bring this nation's anxieties to an end and proceed swiftly to prepare elections and to so inform the government. So that's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is to inform you that another week has now passed and the government has failed, rather the cabinet has failed to resign. The cabinet continues to be in office illegally, and the government is refusing, through the president, to issue a proclamation dissolving Parliament and fixing a date for elections. All types of excuses have been constructed and have been deconstructed and have been demolished, but yet the government obstinately and obdurately continues to defy the clear language of the Constitution and to defy the clear language of the Chief Justice ruling, as well as the Caribbean Court of Justice consequential orders. I want to read in its entirety Article 105 of the Constitution, Article 106 of the Constitution, because there is still some doubt out there in people's mind why the cabinet must resign and why the president as chairman of cabinet must resign. And I heard people are asking, well, to whom must the resignations be submitted? Well, the answer to all those questions are contained in Article 106 of the Constitution. It says this, and I read, 106.1. There shall be a cabinet for Guyana, which shall consist of the President, the Prime Minister, the Vice President, and such other ministers as may be appointed to it by the President. So I pause there. Cabinet consists of the President, the Prime Minister, the Vice President, and such other ministers as may be appointed to it by the President. So when they say that cabinet must resign, they mean that the President, the Prime Minister, the Vice President, and such other ministers appointed by the President to the cabinet must resign from the cabinet. So that's the first point I want to make. Secondly, it says this, 106.2. The cabinet shall aid and advise the President in the general direction and control of the government of Guyana and shall be collectively responsible therefore to the Parliament. Let me read that again. The cabinet shall aid and advise the President in the general direction and control of the government of Guyana and shall be collectively responsible therefore to Parliament. So the cabinet is what aids and advises the government in the general direction and control of the government of Guyana. The cabinet shall aid and advise the President in terms of the general direction and control of the government of Guyana. Well, that cabinet is what must resign. And that cabinet is collectively responsible to Parliament. Collectively responsible to Parliament. So, cabinet is responsible to Parliament. And that is why it is the National Assembly, a component of Parliament. If it passes a no confidence motion, causes cabinet to resign. Because the Constitution itself tells you that cabinet is responsible to the Parliament. So naturally, if cabinet or the government is defeated in the Parliament, because they are answerable to the Parliament, they can be dismissed by the Parliament, they are responsible to the Parliament. And if they are defeated on a no confidence motion, that is why Article 106 says that they must resign. And who are they going to resign to? They have to resign to the National Assembly, to the Parliament, because it's the National Assembly that passed the no confidence motion against them. So I don't understand what is so difficult to comprehend. The cabinet meeting shall be presided over by the President. That's the next one. Article 106.3. Cabinet Meetings shall be presided over by the president. It means that the president is the chairman of cabinet. And we come to 106 and 106.7. The cabinet, including the president, shall resign if the government is defeated by a vote of a majority of all elected members of the National Assembly on a vote of confidence. The cabinet, including the president, shall resign. So the cabinet, the prime minister, the vice president, and all other ministers who are members of cabinet and the president as its chairman must resign if the government is defeated by a vote of no confidence in the National Assembly. And to whom must they resign? They must resign to the clerk or the speaker of the National Assembly because they are answerable under Article 106(2) to the Parliament of Guyana. That is what I just read. So this thing logically flows from one provision to another. So when Mr. Ramjatan is asking, so who we must send the resignation to? You have to send it to the Parliament because you are answerable as a cabinet to the Parliament. And that is why it's only the cabinet that is required to resign. Because only the cabinet is collectively responsible to the Parliament, not the government. And that is why, notwithstanding the defeat, the government shall remain in office until a new president is elected. The government shall remain in office, but the cabinet goes. And Justice George, since the 31st of January, ruled very clearly that cabinet was resigned. And this cabinet has the following lawyers: Moses Nagamutu, Basil Williams, Joseph Harmon, Kemraj Ramjatan, Raphael Truckman. 5 lawyers are in that cabinet, and none of them can read and understand this. None of them. But in 2014, when they were going to pass a no confidence motion against the PPP government, all of them knew what a no confidence motion was, what the implications are, that the government, the cabinet must resign. They all knew it. They were lecturing to this nation that elections must be held within 3 months. Well, we are now over 9 months. Over 9 months past the no confidence motion. And still, this government pretends not to understand what is taking place in our country. So another oil company, so I'll move on, another oil company has discovered huge amount of oil in commercial quantity. And guess what? The contract is even worse than the ExxonMobil contract. Many Guyanese have not yet digested that the ExxonMobil contract, A lot of people, educated people, have never read that contract. And I beseech you to please read it. You see, while PPP supporters and PNC supporters and black people and Kuli people in this country are fighting at each other's throat, and we are fighting for I don't know what, the real riches of Guyana, the real wealth of our country, that we are supposed to join our energies together, unite together to protect so that we can enjoy it and bequeath it to our children. Those riches are being exploited, taken away from us, deprived, denied us, and right before our eyes. But we are so polarized, we are so divided, we are so poisoned against each other that we are blinded to the reality of what is unfolding before us. So we are fighting here about whether a court order should be obeyed. That's what we are fighting about. All over the civilized world, a court order must be obeyed. The smallest child knows that in most countries. But in Guyana, educated people, blinded and poisoned by ethnic politics and nonsensical politics, destructive politics, blinded by that, we are haggling at each other's throat and arguing whether a court order should be obeyed, or what our Constitution says, when we all know what it says. But because our interpretation doesn't suit that of our political party, we reject our own rational interpretation, and we take that being given to us by our political leaders, who are in the process completing the brainwashing of us. And while this sick and sadistic cycle of self-oppression and self-inflicted oppression and self-inflicted exploitation is taking place in Guyana among us Guyanese, the foreigners are discovering the oil in huge quantities, and they are negotiating for themselves contracts that will cause us to continue to be a pauperized people while our riches are carted off and carted away. And we will still continue to fight at each other's throat in Guyana. That is what we are doing. While we are dedicating our energies in this fight that is going nowhere, fighting over things that whether elections should be held or not, elections must be held, but we are fighting over that. One side wants to delay it, one side wants to have it early. And whilst we are putting all of our energies in that direction, we take our eyes off the prize and the others are going with it. You don't have an idea, you who are listening to me. I am in the environment. I am out there. I am seeing it every day. I am in the legal environment. All these things are taking place. I am getting an opportunity to see it. You don't have an idea how many foreigners are buying up our prime properties in this country and getting it at next to nothing price from this government. We are not all the riverside properties along the Demerara River. One morning we will realize that they are all owned by non-Guyanese. All. From Soosdijk all the way to Georgetown. We are going to lose that entire riverfront because foreigners are here and they are buying it out. Whilst we continue to choke each other and beat each other on the head, trying to read simple language of a constitution, trying to distort it, trying to misinterpret it, trying to twist it to suit our political ends. But the oil companies are using the occasion to negotiate for themselves contracts that will make them billionaires overnight, whilst we continue and our children continue in this exploitative, self-inflicted cycle of poverty. That is the tragedy of the Guyanese nation. And we are not understanding it, and we are not addressing our minds to it. So the Tullow contract now is worse than the ExxonMobil contract. And if you read the ExxonMobil contract, it makes you sick. It makes you sick. I can remember distinctly, I haven't read it in a while, but I can remember the regime of taxation, tax exemption No other company ever in the history of Guyana has ever enjoyed that regime of tax exemption. No income tax, no VAT, no custom duties, no excise tax, no sales tax, no purchase tax, no consumption tax. They don't pay anything. And they are engaged in the most profitable economic activity in the Guyana. They are engaged in the most profitable financial and economic activity, and they enjoy the greatest expanse of tax exemptions. But the cane cutter was sent home. The rice farmer has to pay taxes through his nose. The public servants got to pay VAT, got to pay custom duties, got to pay excise tax, got to pay every tax on the book. And they are working for a small salary. A small salary. ExxonMobil, a foreign company that will take oil by the billions of barrels from our shores and make billions and billions of US dollar in profits, not paying any taxes. On what level can that be justifiable? And that, my brothers and sisters, we are not arguing about. We are not beating each other about that. No, we allow that to pass. But you want to beat me for telling you what the Constitution says and asking a government to obey the laws of the country. I am doing something terribly wrong when I do that. When I take this government to court, I get cussed by thousands of government supporters. But they will not speak a word about the exploitation that all of us, me included, are being subjected to by these foreign contracts. Do you know that before Guyana government can go and visit the rigs out there, they have to serve a notice, I don't know how many months notice, before they go and inspect? That is in the contract. And even when you serve that notice, there are certain things that you cannot question when you go out there. There are certain areas of activities that you cannot question. There are certain equipment that you can't go on. There are certain type of information that you cannot request. Imagine you have rented your house at a next to nothing rent, and the tenant tells you that you have to give me 6 months notice before I come and see my own house. And when I come there, I can't go into bedroom number 1. I can't question what is happening in the kitchen. I can only go downstairs. How can we police the contract? How can we police what is going on out there? How can we ensure that we get a fair share of what we are entitled to, as minimal as it is? Because that is what we negotiated for ourselves. Diminished benefits. But as small as those benefits are, we still can't go and get it verified out there. We can't put somebody out there to look at it and record it for us. How do we know how many barrels are being produced? We can't know that. And you're not permitted to be there, and you have to give a few months' notice before you go out there. And when you go out there, there are certain data that you can't question. All of that are set out in the contract. All of that are set out in the contract. And this other contract, we are told, is worse than this one. And more contracts are going to be signed by an illegal cabinet. And that is why this cabinet has to go. That is why we have to go back to the court again. because we have to get a court order to say, as of December the 21st, 2018, the cabinet had to resign or the cabinet became illegal under the Constitution. That's the only way we will be able to reverse some of the perversity that this cabinet has committed. You see the ministers traveling the country, sharing out book bags, and I don't jealous the children, I don't hold that against the children. But look at the wanton spending of money unauthorizedly. The cabinet is illegal. It cannot approve funds. It cannot make decisions. There is no cabinet in law. That cabinet became null and void. It became unconstitutional, unlawful, and illegal upon the 22nd day of December. Illegal. But that cabinet continues to make decisions. We are going to have a lot of problems. We are going to have a lot of problems. Lands are being given away in this country by this government to foreigners at nominal prices. And they are re-renting it, and they are leasing it to the oil companies and reselling it for hundreds of millions of dollars. That is what is taking place now. The Guyanese are not getting the land now. The foreigners are getting it. The deals are being struck at the Marriott Hotel, in the lobby area of the Marriott Hotel. Go and see there what is going on there. And at the poolside of the Pegasus. That's where the deals are worked out. The Guyanese are not benefiting. Not a single comprehensive measure has been put into place to protect local content yet. With all the talk taking place, with all the pressure, all the criticisms from the newspapers and articles and from commentators, not a singular measure of worth has been put in place to protect local content. There is nothing that obliges these companies, and there are many of them who are setting up shop now, and they are building now, they are buying up properties now. Unless we have this thing in place, we are going to lose these opportunities. By the time we put local content measures in place, it would be too late. Because the companies would have already acquired properties here. So they don't have to rent or buy from a Guyanese. They already buy it, they already own it. Look at how many acres of land ExxonMobil was able to get from the Ogle Airport Authority. If we had local content legislation in place, that would not have happened. They are going to put down a $80 million headquarters, 80 million US headquarters there. You think that they're going to put that down on a lease land? There is some arrangement, some promise was made somewhere to give them freehold title for that land. Those people are not stupid. Those people will not put down a 80 million US dollar edifice anywhere in the world unless they are guaranteed title. They're not going to put it on anybody's lease land. So, this is the kind of recklessness that is taking place. And no measure, the Attorney General, I don't think he understands what's going on, poor fellow. I don't think this is way above him. And there is nobody in the government that seems to have the competence, the commitment, or the appreciation to understand these things. We don't have not a single regulatory body, not a single regulatory body in place to protect our people, to protect our resources, to protect our country from this new activity that is known to be environmentally hazardous. Nothing at all. No measure, no policy. We're supposed to have a commission. We're supposed to have a commission. The law is not even passed yet. It is stuck in the National Assembly. We're supposed to have an environmental policy. We're supposed to have the EPA equipped to deal with this kind of new activity. Nothing is there, nothing. And I am hearing that the government wants force oil by December. What have they put in place to prepare this country for force oil? What have they put in place? There is no new set of laws in place. There is not a regulatory body in place. There is not a commission in place. There is no local content legislation or policy in place. There is no environmental policy or paper in place. So this is the most ridiculous thing. This is incompetence that is beyond description. Beyond description. So from all indication, and we don't have to go far for guidance, for advice. Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, to our south and to our north and to our west are Trinidad and Venezuela. Two countries that have been producing oil for more than 100 years. And they have people who can come and help us, guide us, advise us, counsel us. Trinidad is English language. They have a legal system that closely resembles ours. They have a history that closely resembles ours. They have a population that closely resembles ours. They have a culture and a way of life that closely resembles ours. We can easily borrow from Trinidad for the time being. Just borrow from them for the time being. Borrow their legislation. We will get our own, we'll modify it, we'll tweak it, we'll make it adaptable. But do something. Nothing. And there is not even an inclination on the part of this government that they are likely to do anything. None of them speaking about it. They had a few talk shops at the Marriott, and that's about it. That's about it. Millions and millions of dollars are being invested by Guyanese right as I speak. Investing by Guyanese in Guyana in preparation for oil. But they are doing so at their own risk and at their own peril. Because there is nothing in place to protect them. Nothing. There is nothing in place that will cause the companies, the oil companies, to rent these places or to lease these places from Guyanese. Nothing. And the government is not doing anything. So that is where we are with oil. But still yet, it is the only area in the country in which there is some amount of economic activity. It is the only area in the country that is generating some type of money in discernible quantity. Look at our rice farmers. Every other area in the productive sector is done. Every other area. Well, they have comprehensively killed sugar. There's no doubt about that. Sugar is off the table. Look at what they're doing to rice. Unless the government steps in and helps the rice farmers, in 3 to 4 years' time, rice will not be planted in Guyana anymore. I am predicting that. The rice farmers used to be assisted in drainage by the DNI and by Gaisuku in the back dams. The rice farmers, they used to be assisted directly and indirectly by Gaisuku in the back dams with the drainage canals and through direct intervention from the Drainage and Irrigation Authority, the DNI. This government has shut down Gaisuku and has also effectively shut down the DNI. So there is no help coming from the rice farmers to drain the rice lands. So every crop will be affected by floods, almost every crop. MMA, DA is about to be bankrupted. They can't help the rice farmers. They have increased rates and drainage fees by some 1,500%. And they are in survival mode. So they can't help anybody. They can't help the farmers. Then NARI is not doing the type of scientific work, and Burma not doing the type of scientific work that used to be done. So paddy bugs and other types of insects are eating out the remainder of the rice crops. Those that are not damaged by water are damaged by insects. And if this continues, the rice industry will die a gradual death. We will not become self-sufficient when it comes to rice. We will have to import rice. The timber industry is completely shut down. That is dead. Bai Shan Ling and Barama, everybody gone. Everybody gone. The small and medium miners are barely surviving in the gold industry. They are barely surviving. So that's where the gold industry is. There's no maintenance in the back dams with the roads, and the government is not assisting with the concessions that they promised. So there is a decline in mining activities as well. Construction, well, nobody has money to build, and there is too much uncertainty, political uncertainty, that is affecting construction, that is affecting investments generally, and that is affecting commerce. And of course, you have money not circulating because none of the productive sectors performing. So you have less and less economic and commercial activities going on. The no confidence motion, the political climate, the political uncertainty has resulted also in further decline. As the private sector has shown in a study, as well as the Guyana Manufacturing Association. They have also done a study, and they have shown you the decline. The Cubans, who used to spend $2-3 million US per month in Guyana, are now going to Suriname, where they have cheaper flights, more frequent flights, and they are not being robbed, and they are not being harassed by the customs. They pay less customs duty, they pay lower airfare, they get the goods at the same price, and they are not being robbed, and they don't have to have visa requirements as we are imposing here. So they prefer to shop in Suriname than Guyana. So we have lost another 2 million US out of the economy that used to come in every month from Cuba alone. NIS, if you read the recent report, NIS is plummeting to the ground. And we said to them that once you take off 17,000 workers, being the sugar workers, one time from the NIS database, that database will crumble. It will certainly crumble in Berbice because more than 70% of the contributors to NIS in Berbice were the sugar workers. 70% of the contributors in Berbice, NIS, were sugar workers. When they take them off at one time off the register and they deny that fund of that huge chunk of income one time, it plummeted. And once Berbice goes, it will bring the entire NIS down because it's an integrated small base. But these are the implications that we were telling them about, the consequences, the indirect consequences that will flow from the closure of the sugar industry. Now NIS is going into bankruptcy. It can sustain the amount of losses. Barama Naka 500 one day. Gaisuku 17,000 within 6 months. That's income revenue the NIS is losing. It's not getting another 17,000 addition at any given time to compensate it. So what do you think will happen? When you take off 17,000 of income, but you don't have a corresponding number being added to it, what do you think will happen? It is rapidly declining. And many businesses in this country have had to condense their operations. They have had to alter their operations downwards. And I have not even reached to the custom officers yet to tell you what they are doing with importers. I have spoken to the Commissioner General at length about it, but unfortunately to no avail. The custom officers are whimsically and capriciously rejecting transaction values presented to them on invoices by importers, and they are raising it to their own value, thereby increasing custom duties, increasing in excise taxes. And they are doing it whimsically and capriciously. And this government gave them a power to do so under the Customs Act. And an amendment was done to give them that new discretion. So when you bring in this pen, they can reject the value of this pen that you present to them. Although you have your receipt and everything where you buy this pen from. They can look at the pen and say, no, it doesn't value $1. I don't believe you. It values $2. So though you pay $1 for the pen, you have to pay duty on $2. That sends up your costs by 100% immediately. And then they do 100% check on most containers. Well, I spoke about that already. On most containers, 100% check. That means that they look at every single item. You know what that does? It has a cost attached to it. Because the container takes longer to get clear of the wharf. When that happens, you have to pay storage at the various wharves. So you're getting hit all around. And then when you take the goods off the wharf at an increased cost because of the new measures of customs, there is no demand for it. Why? Because there is no money circulating. That is what is going on currently in Guyana. And there is no policy from the government to revitalize this economy. They're sharing out school bags with David Granger photograph on it. They are painting building green. They are coming up with new mottos. This is where in the world does these things build a country and build an economy? Where? That is what this government likes to do. They believe in these symbolic ceremonial things. So they build a walk over the road. And they celebrate that as a major accomplishment. They paint a building green. They give out national awards. Those things may be nice, but they don't build a country. They don't create jobs. They don't create wealth. They don't put food on the table for anyone. They do very little of tangible value to a country. And that is the kind of initiative that this government is blessed with. They can't earn wealth. They can't create wealth. They have no policy that generates wealth. They have no policy that creates jobs. Nothing like that. But they will, they have their own strengths. They will tell you about a building that must be painted in green. Anyway, I think that I have said enough, and I want to bring you in discussion. You are to join me. The number is on your screen. Please call and be brief. Hello? Sorry, we are having some technical difficulty we are having here. They're telling me that the line is in use. I don't know, but if you're able to get through, I will take your call and ensure that you make your contribution briefly. Sorry, we are not getting through. Something is wrong with the telephone, so I'll have to check that back. Hopefully we get it fixed by next week. So I plan to speak about the Haitians at length, but time is not permitting. But what I want to say though, that what is clear, I've been reading what is going on. I have seen the Haitians myself. I have traveled with them. I came into the country several times through Panama City, and I have seen dozens of Haitians land with me at the airport, sat with them for 3 hours in the aeroplane. I know they don't speak English. When they land at the Chedijagan International Airport, I have observed them being taken out of the line and being sent to a separate part of the airport where they are looked after by a person in uniform at a desk. I have observed all of that. I have reported that to the leader of the opposition. And I have seen minibuses pick them up and go off with them. I don't know where, but I am now reading. And I have been following what is going on. There are many theories out there. But one of them that I want to speak about tonight quickly is human trafficking and human smuggling. There is no doubt, to my mind, that somewhere in this country there is a ring of smuggling going on involving the Haitians. And there is enough evidence for me to conclude that people in government are involved. There is too much central planning, organization going on. People with uniforms, government officers with uniforms are being seen in this process. There are persons in the government who are involved in some form of human smuggling. in respect of the Haitians. Mr. Felix himself has been quoted in the press as saying that thousands of Haitians are coming into Guyana and leaving illegally to go to Brazil. And he doesn't seem to have a problem with that. Mr. Felix doesn't seem to have a problem with that. He doesn't understand that Guyana can find itself in deep international trouble and in serious violation of international law if it permits its territory to be used as a mule to traffic people, as a conduit to travel people, to traffic people, to smuggle human beings. Mr. Felix is glibly and boldly giving out the statistics, not recognizing that he has a duty. He has a duty to ensure that if people come into this country legally, they must leave legally. That is part of his responsibility as the minister with responsibility for immigration. You can't bring people into this country legally and then that is the end of your obligation. You don't care what happened to them afterwards. They're not Guyanese. You have to ensure that they go back legally because they didn't come here to stay permanently. They were not sponsored. They are not immigrants. They are tourists or they are visitors and they are here on a visitor's visa. Upon the expiration of that visa, their permission to stay in Guyana ends and it is the immigration's responsibility to get them out of this country, not to facilitate their exit into another country illegally. I hope that the international community is looking on and observing the stupidity of Felix when he's making these statements. And really there is nobody to advise the poor fellow, because I don't think his legal advisor knows better. So Felix is making some shocking statements and is doing so without understanding their legal implications and their international diplomatic implications. Anyway, we seem to be having, that is all I want to say for now in relation to the Haitians. I'm going to continue that as a major topic on the next occasion. But this is where I have to say good evening. I have not had luck with the telephone, and for that I apologize. I want to thank you once again for joining me over the past hour or so as we engaged in discussions on the important issues of a political nature taking place in our country. It has been a pleasure to have been with you over the past 55 minutes, and I want to thank you once again for sharing that time with me. Until we see each other again next week, please take care and join me so that we can resume our interesting discourse. Thank you very much and good evening.